Good afternoon. My name is Todd Ream. I am the editor of GeorgiaPundit.com, which is a daily newsletter that's sent out by email about state and local government. I also happen to be a paddler, and I'm the moderator for this and for several of the other episodes.
Todd, we're having trouble with your audio.
Can you hear me now?
It was better before.
How's this? Let me try something real quick. Sorry. We didn't have any problem earlier. Is that better?
No, it's doing something different than it did 5 minutes ago.
Okay. Yeah. Bear with me just a moment. How's that? Is that better? Andrea, can you hear me?
Yeah, but it's not better.
Is there anything that
I think it changed when you plugged the headphones in.
How's this? Is that better?
No.
Nope.
But I think we're going to have to go with it because this is what we've got, and we're live.
All righty. Can you hear me okay now? Maybe I just need to modulate my loudness a little bit. Is that better?
It's very quiet, very muffled.
Okay, give me one moment, and I'm going to try one last thing. Is that any better?
No.
Better now? How's that?
Nope.
Okay. Alrighty, how about that?
That's a little better.
Okay. Well, we're just going to continue on from here, and we'll figure out, hopefully, before the next issue. We had this working perfectly during our pre-check about 10 minutes ago, and I'm not certain what happened. But hopefully we'll have Dan and Peter do most of the speaking from here on out. Tonight we're joined by Dan Gilbert, the CEO and president of Whitewater Express, which is an outfitter that is based in Columbus, Georgia, and also has operations across the river in Phoenix City. We also have Peter Bowden, president and CEO of the Columbus Visitors Bureau, who will help us understand the development of Whitewater in Columbus and how it's affected the city. Peter, can you tell us a little bit about how this started, how Columbus made the decision to invest in this form of tourism, and what kind of effects you've seen?
Well, absolutely. It's interesting. It actually started as a conversation on a front porch many years ago. And it's a development of a public-private partnership. Two gentlemen got together and they said, what if there was whitewater on the Chattahoochee River? And so essentially what turned into a initial discussion of river restoration, which was removing two of the hydroelectric dams that were decommissioned because they were no longer being used for textile purposes. This restoration project resulted in what we know today as one of the longest urban whitewater course in the world. So we got 2.5 miles of whitewater from, an easy float trip in the morning to almost class 5 rapids in the afternoon. And we've seen an explosion of economic development because of that. And again, it was a series of meetings with different agencies, both local government, state government, federal agencies, all across the gamut, as you can imagine, because you're dealing with not just a single body of water, but a body of water that is shared by two states, Georgia and Alabama. So a lot of conversations, a lot of money invested and raised to make this happen. And then here we are today with probably one of the best success stories that Columbus has to tell, because as we spoke earlier, the river has always been the purpose of Columbus. I mean, back in the day, the early founding days, it was an industrial part of our success. And now here it is, a huge recreational body of water here in Columbus.
And Dan, can you tell us a little bit about Whitewater Express and how y'all became involved in Columbus?
Sure, and let me jump on to the end of what Peter was just saying. Columbus is a lot like most towns in the U.S. where they had turned their backs on the rivers. So the town had basically closed down. The hydropower was no longer being used to power the city, and people did not visit the river. The river, as a matter of fact, in Columbus, vegetation had grown up so much you hardly see the river. And now what has happened is the closer you get to the river, the more valuable the property is. So everybody wants to be hanging over the river, wants to be in the river, and they want to watch what's going on the river. So it is a tremendous, just like Peter said, tremendous success story. And we have many cities from all over the country that come in each year to try to see what we've done, to try to do the same thing. But this is a great success story from private investors and government and recreation coming together. It's rare to see those entities come together and everybody ends up happy in the end.
Yeah, I think, again, going back to that, it's one of those things that Columbus is known for public-private partnership. And this is, again, one of those best examples of how that all came together.
What were some of the private and some of the public organizations that were involved in the development and that continue to be involved to this day?
Well, obviously, the local governments got together, which, can be a challenge sometimes when you work with government. And they each contributed. We had Phoenix City, which is a county city government. So there were two branches of government to work with in Alabama. And in Columbus, thankfully, we're a consolidated government. So it was just one body of elected officials that had to be convinced that this was a good project. And so there was each contribution or a fund set aside to make that work. And then, of course, then the private sector stepped in to raise the money to make this happen. And Columbus is very fortunate that we have a very generous philanthropic community. And when they get behind a project, they go big. I mean, there are many examples of what we could talk about on this program alone outside of Whitewater of that sort of success. But again, I believe it took 13 years worth of conversations and fundraising before anything started. So, I mean, again, it was a long, drawn out process, making sure all the boxes, all the environmental processes were taken care of. There was even an example of the types of fund needed. There were models built by the architects of this Whitewater experience that showed once the river was turned on and certain stones and certain pieces were put in place, how that river flow would work so that they could modify the actual river, to make it a very safe environment for our rafters and kayakers.
One of the things that drove the community, especially the private investors early on, is young people were leaving Columbus, just like all the other towns, small towns. And young people were leaving Columbus, and they didn't want that to continue happening. What we've seen is a lot of young people have come back now. People are coming back to Columbus because it's such a cool place to be, and there's more things for them to do. The people are enjoying Columbus more than they did in previous days. And then one other thing I'd add to that too is, we got lucky. I've worked with other cities on Whitewater projects, and there's a lot of engineers involved, but there's also luck involved. We had great engineers on this section of the river, but we had great luck. We ended up with some of the best waves in the world. Yep. One of our waves, called Good Wave, named by the kayakers, is considered in the top 10 waves for kayakers in the entire world.
Yep.
So we had some luck along the way too. We've got some of the best whitewater in the Southeast.
How has the opening of the Whitewater course improved the local area and the local economy? It's been, I think you said, about 12 years since it opened. Were there benefits that have accrued that you didn't expect? Were there surprises that it worked as well as it has? And how does it help you bring people into the area?
Yeah, I think that we always knew that by promoting the river, there would be success. The introduction of Whitewater helped, and part of that Whitewater experience, by the way, is our River Walk, which is a engineering feat in itself of what it is. It's a 21-mile linear park that hugs the banks of the Chattahoochee on the Columbus side. But tandem to that, what we've seen happen is that even during COVID, and this is important, I think, to emphasize to our viewers, is that even during COVID, 3 hotels were built in downtown Columbus, just a few blocks from the Whitewater course. They have opened. Our convention hotel went through a major renovation, down to the studs, all the way back out. We've seen an explosion of restaurants in the uptown area. I mean, there are a lot of things that also impact that, but I think the reason why I say that is that part of our messaging in telling that story is that we talk about that you can raft regardless of your physical prowess. You can raft the Chattahoochee and then literally walk a few blocks away and have a beer or a nice meal with family. Where in other places, you're in the wilderness. You can't have that sort of experience. So you've got that urban whitewater combination that is kind of sexy in a way. And it really, I think, is intriguing to the customers that we talk to, the research that we've conducted. They often talk about that, well, I never knew this, and this is worth coming to. And I think what Whitewater Express has done is they have made it truly a family experience, which has been one of our biggest goals, is how do we talk to a multi-generational audience, boomers traveling with their kids and grandkids and then extended family. How do we talk? How do we tell that story? Well, Whitewater Express has been able to kind of encapsulate all of that with all of the things that they have done beyond just Whitewater on the Chattahoochee here in Columbus. But they've created this adventure experience that makes it really a really easy story to talk about and convince our visitors that it's worthwhile to either come for a weekend, come for a vacation, come for the day.
Peter's exactly right. To this day, I mean, we were on the river all this past week. It's been very busy, but people still tell us every day that they come here for the different experience. We don't compete with the Ocoee Nantahala River as much as it's an alternate place to come. So a family may do Ocoee one month and they come down to Columbus and visit here the next time, because it's such a very different experience. What they really enjoy is the cool vibe of being in town. You go down, you have some white water, you get off the river, you can go get a great salad or salmon right on the riverbank. You get a great restaurant, and then you can stay at a fabulous hotel right on the river. So it's very different than the other rivers, and that's what's so wonderful about it.
Yep.
Can either of you quantify some of the benefits? Do you have any statistics that'll help us understand the scale of what the Whitewater course and the associated businesses have brought in?
Peter, I can jump in there with my rudimentary stuff, and then you can correct me. But I know we did a survey. Uptown, who regulates the river, they did a survey about 4 years after we opened, and found that gross revenues were up about 60% in Uptown, which is the area right next to the river. And my understanding is I believe there's been about $500 million in new development since the river opening in 2013. So now you can correct me on what I messed up there, Peter.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it has been a multi-million-dollar success story for downtown. I can talk a little bit more about the broader sense that every year we do an analysis of just tourism in general. Now, granted, these numbers are not specific to Whitewater, but it gives you understanding, again, that if we're promoting adventure, which is the Whitewater experience, food, which again is connected to Whitewater, arts and culture, again, connected to that, and then entertainment. So we're talking last fiscal year, we tracked over 1.9 million visitors to the city. They spent over $300 million while we're here in the destination. And this is, I think, the most important thing for communities looking to do something like this, is that because of visitor spending, there was a $600+ savings per household in Columbus. So in other words, without visitor spending, local government would have had to make up a difference per household because of that lack of revenue. So, and then you talk about the jobs. There were, almost 4,000 jobs created because of the hospitality industry, $38 million in income for those hospitality jobs. And that's, restaurants, hotels, the service industry, and that list keeps getting more and more brought out because of what is happening in the downtown or the urban core here in Columbus. And again, it's part of that nucleus of what's happened because of the interest in whitewater, the green spaces that have come about. And of course, as Dan mentioned, all that development that has really focused in on what makes the downtown area sort of that must-go-to place during the week for the residents. And of course, our visitors are discovering it all the time.
And Todd, I want to jump in there just for a second. The thing about this all that just makes me so excited for all of Georgia is that the same factors, people who love to come to a unique experience, people who love to recreate on the rivers, those same factors exist all over the state, right? And what drove the situation in this opportunity in Columbus, they took down a dam and they built a whitewater course, and the whole business community got behind it. And it's a niche opportunity around rafting and whitewater, but then they expanded it. They expanded it to world-class freestyle kayaking, where they've now in the last 2 years held 2 international competition events of Olympic caliber competition with a lot of local homegrown paddlers that trained on other rivers in Georgia. And then they've expanded it to a zip line, and they keep adding hotels, and they keep adding restaurants, and they have music festivals, and there's all kinds of expansions that are happening to make it, as Peter said, a multi-generational experience. And those same factors in other parts of the state, it doesn't have to be a whitewater destination experience everywhere. Other places, it could be a kayak fishing destination experience, or a tubing destination experience, or a paddleboard destination experience. There could be any number of other ways that a community could rally to build a destination experience around river recreation that could have similar impacts, because we have the same region and the same travelers and the same people who are passionate about rivers.
Right. And, the thing to piggyback on that thought process, that it takes leadership and commitment. And Dan Gilbert, when he took on the assignment as being the outfitter for this whitewater course, he's part of that group that has that vision. I mean, certainly there are others that are involved, our Downtown Redevelopment Authority and so forth, and the private sector that has brought projects to the table. But you've got to have someone that has the vision and the passion to keep that focus regardless of what the experience is going to be, so that at the end of the day, you've delivered a product that's unique or authentic, and that that destination can have those bragging rights, or be able to create that sort of environment that people are looking for.
And that's what's at risk right now with this Freedom to Float campaign. What's at risk is the access to our rivers, and the fact that we have leaders like that all over our state that are trying to build those sorts of visions and trying to build that kind of collective action to do something that will enrich our lives and as well as our economies. But if we don't have access to our rivers, if the access to our rivers is at stake, if that's at risk, then that's also limiting our access to these entrepreneurial and community opportunities.
My last question as a wrap up would be for both Peter and Dan, and that is, what advice would you have for other communities that are looking to Columbus and thinking, well, we've got a river access, we've got some neat features, we'd like to do what Columbus did on a scale that works for our community? What kind of advice do you have for those folks?
Come see us.
Yeah.
Come see us and let us show you all the good and the bad, so that you can learn hopefully from our growth through this process, because we certainly weren't experts when we got into this, but as we've talked about throughout this program, there are tons of other people behind this one project that could help those communities get to where they want to be.
Yeah, I started off by saying we have groups come in from all over the country. We really do, and we're happy to help them out in their planning, and they can learn a lot from our success and mistakes, like Peter said. I do think it's what Peter said. It's very important to, you know, if you're going to do something like that, grab the other folks in your community that are full of enthusiasm. We do have a core group. Peter is certainly part of that has vision for where we're going. And, you know, every time we finish one project, we're right on to a new project. And I think that's really good for our city as well.
Well, thank you all. I believe we're about out of time. I'm going to give you a couple thoughts to wrap up real quickly. And then, Andrea, do you want to do the calls to action, or would you like me to?
Well, I could do it, and I know my friends in the background will help with those links. We want to make sure that folks are sharing these broadcasts, because part of what we're trying to do is amplify these conversations and have more people across Georgia participating in these conversations about what it means to have access to our rivers, how important that is to our local communities. We also have a link to our Freedom to Float homepage, and a link to our action alerts, so that you can send an email to the to Georgia legislators to tell them what you think about the topic. We know that there is right now a study committee forming of legislators that is deciding what should be the way we apply rules of navigable streams to recreation in Georgia, and that there are a number of our rivers that are at risk. And if we want to have opportunities for other communities to do what Columbus has done, we need to have access to our rivers. We can't curtail a local community's opportunity to invest in attracting this kind of business and opportunity. We also have the Georgia River Network Paddle-a-thon, which is an awful fun contest, even if all you want to do is paddle, but it's also a fundraiser for advocacy for this topic. And in the process, as you turn in your trips, you're helping us document where people are actually paddling in Georgia, so that we can take all that information to the legislators and make sure that they know these are not forgotten rivers. People are paddling these rivers frequently, and they have been for decades and for generations, and they're important to us.
For those of us who spend a lot of time on and in the rivers, we've taken river access for granted for many years, but this is a real threat. And a lot of folks who are interested in this topic don't know where to start. They've never talked to their legislators. They've never talked to local officials. But if you're interested in helping protect the freedom to float, getting involved with the Georgia River Network, with the American Canoeing Association, the Georgia Canoeing Association, these are great places to bring together paddlers who share your priorities, and we will help you get your story out to your legislators. There is nothing more effective at helping a legislator making the right decision than arming them with good information. And particularly some of the statistics about the numbers of visitors, the number of dollars, the number of jobs that have been created in Columbus. That's the kind of thing that without that information, legislators won't understand that paddling is not just something that people buy a boat and go out and do, but it's something that they do that has ramifications for the local economy. When people go to spend a weekend in a paddling destination, they're going to use the hotels, they're going to use the restaurants and the bars, they're going to use Airbnbs and hotels, and they'll probably do other recreational stuff. If I'm going down to Columbus, I'm probably going to catch a baseball game if I can as well. And getting the story out about both the economic success of Columbus and what's possible and what happens every weekend or every weekday when you go paddling and you leave some of your money in the local community, that's what's going to help the legislators make the best decisions. So thank you all. I think we're going to wrap it up now. If you will check in the whichever venue you're watching us, whether you're watching us on Facebook or whether you're watching later on YouTube on demand, you will, if you look around the post, you'll see connections to the Paddle-a-thon, to how you can get alerts sent to you for things that you can do to protect this freedom, and ways to get involved and help ensure that not only can this be something that you do for the rest of your life, but you can build a family tradition around being on the water.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
And this time next week, we'll be talking about the Cartacay.
My favorite river.